So Michael, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad and thankful that you were able to join our presentation, Stress Management. And I'm excited about this timing of this presentation, because as a result of this timing of this, during this point in the semester, this is about a little less than 4 weeks before the end of the semester, there's a lot of stress that takes place and that you might be going through right now. So before we begin this presentation, I want to introduce you to the team who's going to be presenting today. I'll introduce myself. My name is DeLisa Uvaldo. I'm an academic success counselor here at Pima. Stress matters, and how you look at stress matters. So I'm hoping to use this time to have a group discussion about stress and really have a better understanding of how stress plays on our body and what we can do to alleviate some of those stress with planning and understanding. So I'm going to now introduce, send it to my co-counselor colleague, Uvaldo.
Thank you. Thank you, DeLisa. Yes, and my name is Uvaldo Martinez, and I'm also an academic success counselor, and I work out of the downtown campus within the business division and the lead for the paralegal studies program. And I wholeheartedly agree with DeLisa. You know, stress is part of life, right? And yet, how can we use that to help us accomplish, you know, our goals, whether they be personal, management, academic, life, and how that stress, you know, affects all of our, you know, aspects of our life and our whole being, if you will. And how can we truly use that to empower us, right? That's kind of the title we had. As you can see here, it says stress management, but we gave it the title on the advertisement as far as the flyer, Stress Empowerment Hour. I like that. So thank you. I think that was the DeLisa that you came up with that title, or maybe a couple of us, you there. So that's my welcome and intro, and great to have you with us, Samantha, right?
Savannah.
Oh, Savannah, forgive me.
Savannah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Savannah Torricini. I am a student at Pima Community College. I am also the president of the NASA Club, the Native American Student Association Club. And I'm here just kind of listening in because I know it can be stressful, especially towards the end of the semester. So I want to find different tips and kind of encourage that, incorporate that to my club, you know, to help students kind of power through the end of this semester.
I like that, power through. Yeah.
Very positive. All right. And of course, we have with us the leads of Student Life. They might want to give a quick introduction, and then we can begin this presentation. So,
hello, my name is Michael Lopez. I am the Student Life Coordinator presently at the East Campus. And thank you, Savannah, and everyone else for being here today. Thank you.
And I'm Jennifer Wellborn with Student Life as well, and I'm glad you're able to join us and hopefully get some great tips to take back to your NASA club members.
All right. So I selected this picture here at Madeira. I took a walk, a nice walk during a winter day at Madeira Canyon, and being in that environment, walking amongst nature, was really a definite way for me to reflect and really think about my stress. So I wanted to add this to the beginning of the presentation, just to really, you know, kick off the direction and the thought that we're going to think about when it comes to stress management. So let's begin. Here is another photo of Colossal Cave. Inside there, something about being with nature again, rooted again with nature, getting that exercise out there, looking at the stalactites, stalagmites, and in the cave, and really being part of that, the nature, the realness of it all. And just as we feel realness about being around nature and being around people we care about, It is also possible to really understand the origins of your stress, and through understanding, you might be able to reduce that stress. So really, this presentation is going to be a collaborative discussion about what we're thinking about when it comes to stress. How do we really define stress, and what we can do to alleviate the stress. So two of the things that I'm getting started on, is actually wellness, doing things, being a part of things that really helps to reduce the stress. So these are two things, pictures I wanted to start out with. So the agenda for today is a collaborative discussion to reduce stress. That's the purpose of it. So my premise is really, if you really understand why you're feeling stressed, exactly what is stressing you out, how you experience the stress in your body, and thinking about the way you think about stress can definitely reduce your stress. And then, as we are such busy people in our day-to-day lives, it's really important to figure out, like, how are we going to prioritize the multiple things that we're doing in a given day? And how can we make that schedule for us work for us? Because what you will find in the presentation, because we do have a video presentation we want to show as well, what you're going to really find is that the research, understanding and making choices, and participating in habits that really reduce stress is something that's definitely possible. So we want to reflect, we want people to be able to prioritize, reflect, and relax, and recharge, and find ways to make all the things that happen in life a lot easier to deal with. So we're going to be discussing that today. All right. So, you go everywhere and you look at discussions about stress, and people define stress in different ways. So I'm just going to kind of like look at some of the definitions of stress, and we can really think about it in our own right. Okay, these are definitions that are out there, but do these definitions really reflect the way we think about stress? So one of the ways to view stress is the body's reaction to any change that it experiences, which requires an adjustment or response. The body reacts to these changes with physical, mental, and emotional responses. So I'm going to just take that definition for a moment, and let's just think about that again. Do you agree with that statement? How do you experience stress? Do you experience stress in your body? Is it a physical? Is it mental? Is it something that develops because of change? So let's think about that for a moment and see if we agree, disagree, or we have another definition regarding stress. So the second definition, and so there's something to add on to think about, and then we'll discuss. Second definition, what is stress? It is when we feel under pressure. Okay, is that true? You feel your stress when you're under pressure? When you don't feel in control. Okay, is that during the exams, during budget? What is it? Is that true? Is it when you're struggling to cope with things? All of the above. Right? Okay. So think about your stress and think about the definition, and what kind of definition would you have regarding stress? So I think I'm going to just kind of pose this to Uvaldo, for example. How would you define stress, Uvaldo?
Well, I think external, it can be external, situations and circumstances that, maybe we're not accustomed to, or where we mentally, emotionally, psychologically, react to. And so, you've often heard of the idea of, are you reacting or are you responding? Sometimes there's some unconditional responses, right? For a number of different reasons, different triggers. When, we're coming up against, let's say, for example, a math exam. I've studied, I've prepared, at least in my mind, I think I've studied and prepared. And now I go to the test. I'm feeling a little bit anxious, if you will. Not sure what, how I'm going to do, what kind of questions. There's all these thoughts and questions that come up, before an exam. But then I try to reassure myself, right? And say, well, I've prepared, and so I'm ready to take this on, kind of move forward. And then once I see the exam and I go blank. So one, I can, be stopped in my tracks and begin to continue to fester that. Or I can, with the whole idea, can I be empowered by that? So there's one way or the other. And I think one of them is the react, because I don't fully understand what the test is about. I kind of go blank. Or do I respond? Meaning I kind of process things. So that's, certainly one strategy to look at. Okay, I've reviewed, I've prepared. Let's take this methodology. Yeah, you kind of look at it within a method is the way I'm trying to get at. There's a word there. I can't get it out. Methodically, that's the word. And look at, okay, I remember from my strategies as far as studies, I need to first look at the instructions. I need to look at the overall test, kind of just get a survey of what's there. And then I might see that there's one particular problem that, seems to be simple enough. So start with something that gets me going in that direction. The other is something I call a mind dump, where I can just put down some, maybe some rules, if you will, or guides that I already know, that I've memorized, hopefully. And I put those down on a paper to help me begin that that process of, flowing with the topics and the problems that are presented to me in that exam. So anyway, I think I'll just stop there. But
but what you said, Uvaldo, definitely talked about the physical. You thought you were prepared. You physically you weren't sure about the test. You had some mental things going on, and you were able to come up with strategies to help you understand that you could do it. So stress did impact you physically. There was a mental component to it, an emotional response. So according to the definition, it seems like you kind of fit some of the definitions with that example. What about you, Savannah? How would you define stress?
I think based off of the definition, that's kind of how I would explain stress. For me, a lot of the times my body is reacting first.
Okay.
And then comes along, the mental part, because I got to think about it. But the response from stress is, heart starting to race, clammy hands, start, breathing heavily. Along with that goes with anxiety, and then mentally talking my way down from stress. But a lot of those things, like feeling under the pressure if you have to meet some sort of deadline. A great example would be taking a test that is timed. That can be really stressful and can contribute to stress and anxiety. Not having that control, to be able to finish that test on time can contribute to that. And not being able to cope with it during that time, because you got to be rushed through that test. A lot of the times that tends to happen to me. I feel like I know all the answers, but majority of the time when it comes to the stress, I kind of go through that same thing as I just forget it all.
Right.
Go back to that mind dumping of putting everything down, like, okay, the key things that I need to remember, so that way stress doesn't take over, because if it takes over, then that means I'm gonna fail.
That's right.
That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
It really sounded like you were utilizing the initial reactions, if you will, physically, emotionally. You talked about the nervousness, maybe butterflies in your stomach, a little bit of sweating, the breathing, that then you become aware of it, but then you use that knowledge, as what I'm hearing, to then kind of put process that, okay, be aware of what's happening. Now go with what you know is your game plan. And, sometimes it takes a little bit of processing that through to make that happen. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, definitely. All right. So we have kind of a working definition within our group about what is stress, what's that, how you respond to stress in a given situation. Both of our examples were more about test taking. So what about other areas of stress? Okay. So what is stressing you out at the moment? So I'm going to give us a moment to think about maybe the areas or the clusters that might be stressing us out at this time. All right. So obviously, I guess coming before finals, we definitely think about test taking. But test taking is one component. Academic deadlines is one component of stress. But what are other areas of stress that you might be working with right now that might be part of your life that you're feeling a combination of areas of stress? So let's take a moment out to think about what are some of those areas we're feeling stressed about.
As you are thinking about that, just want to welcome Namrata.
Hello.
Welcome.
So Namrata is what we're looking at right now. Not only are we feeling stress, and not only do we have our own individual definitions of stress, something that stresses me out may not stress you out at all. So we have all of us respond to different situations in different ways, and there are different things that definitely stresses us out. So right now we're really trying to understand, well, what is it? What is it specifically? What are those areas that are stressing us out? So we're going to take a moment out just to kind of think about that. Okay. So what is stressing you out? All right, so since both of you shared, and then I'm going to share, and then our new member is going to share if she doesn't, if he doesn't mind.
Yeah, Namrata shared that working from home.
Oh, really? Tell us a little bit about that, Namrata, if you don't mind.
I mean, I have family home too, so like having everyone under one house, and it's just like my husband's got a meeting going on one side. I have one going on this side, and then got parents home and in-laws home, and it's just so much. Like it could like just bundle up and become like just a stress ball where you can't release anywhere.
Right.
With gyms closed and a lot of facilities requiring you to still wear a mask to do a lot of activities. Like I before I used to release, like I play racquetball or squash.
Okay.
And now like here in Illinois and Chicago, like it's facilities are still facilities are still not allowing everyone back at the capacity that it used to be before, and it requires masks. So running with a mask on, I'll tell you, is not fun. It makes me tired a lot faster, and I hate it. So instead of releasing stress, I'm just adding more stress onto the body. So it's just, so being cooped up in one place is not only stressful, but not having another means of releasing it just is even more stressful. I don't know if I'm like saying this right, but like I'm trying to explain what I feel. But
got it.
In your Namrata, when you talk about going to the gym, that is a means to be able to release stress. But if you go there and you want to release some of that stress, but you're finding that there's stressful aspects to, for example, the mask.
It's masks, and then there's people who don't actually, like, the rules state wear a mask, right? But then you have people that are not wearing masks, they're not sanitizing after themselves, they're not cleaning the equipment. It's more stress because then you have to do the work for them, and it's not fair. And like, it's just this whole COVID thing has just added on a lot more problems. Like for me, like I'm an event planner, right? I got let go from my job last year in October,
Mm,
November, and they're not seeing a comeback for any of us until next year, like summer.
wow.
Because events are still like they're not it's not at full capacity yet.
Mm,
But Narada, you mentioned several things. Okay, so the fact that first of all, when it comes to outlets, where are my outlets? The outlets that used to be tried and true, like working out, like having some space to yourself, like having the freedom to do what you want to do without limitations, they've been taken away somewhat. But even with your mentioning of your job, there's also a financial thing that might come into place because you can't do that outlet that you love, the event planning. So you fall in a couple of categories: finance and work is another one.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then also you kind of alluded to the fact that, oh my gosh, things like COVID is out of my control. So some of the things that I knew as normal are now no longer in effect any longer. Or it's delayed. So all of that's stressful. So you absolutely were able to hone in on those areas that you are feeling the level of stress. Okay, so the first part of this slide is to really identify it. We're going to talk about solutions to those, those various areas of stress. So I really feel like first the goal was to really define what stress is. And in your situation, you're feeling stress is, you would define it as work challenges, finance challenges, freedom challenges. Those are the kind of things. Working with multiple, generations of family members at the same time, limited resources are stressing you out. So these are a combination of things that are stressing you out. A couple of us talked about test taking stress. So that's another area of stress. So definition that all of us are responding to different situations in different ways. Do we define it as stress or not? It really depends on the person. So we'll continue. Okay.
Yeah, like I think I don't know if I'm pronouncing this name right. Martinez.
Uvaldo?
Yeah, like he mentioned, like test taking, and it's a bit stressful for me. Like I could make hundreds and I can make a decent grade, but it requires me to like study extra just to get there. Like I had to find means to like make sure I understand it. Like because I'm an online student, it's stressful when I can't find the help that I need.
Right.
Let's say tutoring, like because there's limited amount of people that are available to get help with tutoring. So there's just added stress, like who's gonna help me when you have like classmates who actually don't care, they're just passing the grade to pass the grade, who don't reply back, or you have professors that take a long time to reply back, or who can be great professors, but they don't know how to explain to you everything in detail in an online setting like they would in a physical setting. That's an added stress. Like it's a mixture and a combination of things where when it's a new platform and it's not actually been thought through, it's just thrown together.
I see what you mean.
And then students are like kind of like at the end of it and struggling, and that's how I feel, because I've this year since spring semester, it's been like that. It's been like more of it goes up and then it just drops. Like when it drops, it's like goes from 100 to 50 to 40 like within seconds. Like that's how it's been. Like my graph chart of help has like been ridiculous. So it just adds on stress. So like if I know I could understand it if I'm shown how to deal with it, right? Like so like assignments or homeworks and stuff like that. But when you're not getting that help, it's just added stress. And so like exams and assignments and stuff like that. It's more like a time crunch, and all my classes are 8-week classes, so it's just even more.
And
Tomorrow.
Namrata, that's what kind of what I was hearing is that it's a time management, obviously related situation. And I think there's a lot of neat strategies out there, and that's where DeLisa and myself as academic success counselors come in, and each division has one. You probably have one if you see it through your Pima connection. But as DeLisa discussed or mentioned, there are different outlets to be able to release stress, but then there's other strategies as well for managing the stress. And that's where we want to help and empower the students so that they can power through it, as Savannah had said earlier.
Yes. So yes, what we are doing again. So what you did so beautifully, Namara, is that you know exactly where your stress is coming from. You're talking about specifics. I need resources when I need the resources. When we did the online, it just seemed like it was just kind of rushed and I was impacted. So you were definitely seeing some different things. So we hear you, definitely. So what we're trying to do is with your understanding of where your stress is coming from, we can work on things that can help you manage or find ways to reduce some of that stress for you, okay? All right, so not only were you able, both of you, Savannah and Namara, were able to express what stress is and what type of stress you're experiencing, you were also able to label the various types, the various categories of stress that you're experiencing. Now, this time I want you to think about where in your body you're experiencing the stress this time, okay? And how is it impacting you? Like, all right, so sadness, do you get headaches? Are you migraines? Are you like, you're feeling in your heart? Is your blood racing? So I really want you to kind of list how your body is experiencing this stress. I'll give you a moment to think about that. I really think knowledge is power. And I really think taking time to really reflect from top to bottom exactly what you're experiencing and why you're experiencing is the ticket for understanding how to address it. And even though these are some suggestions here, there might be some others that we didn't even label here, okay? Just think about you and how you're experiencing the stress. And Amara, you were definitely, I can definitely get the A's, but sometimes I need to work on it. I need my resources, where are they, okay? And B, when I don't get them, I feel things. How do you feel it? So as we're taking this little like diary or really reflecting on this, okay, we looked at the definition. We looked at exactly how we're feeling stress. We're looking at how stress permeates in our body. All right, we're going to go to the next slide for more information. Okay. Now, in all of our examples that we had, we were really talking about out of control, stress. Let me just ask you this question before I play this video. Is stress horrible? Is stress a horrible thing? Is it a bad thing to have? What are the consequences of having stress? So, Uvaldo, what do you think about that? Is stress a good thing or not?
I guess the yes and no. Stress obviously causes certain things to happen physiologically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can use that, again, if we can identify, as you so clearly did, Namrata, identify what the stress is. And sometimes I think somebody mentioned we don't always know, why am I feeling this way, right? But when you can identify it and also connect with or get in touch with, okay, what's happening? I'm getting a little anxiety. My heart is palpitating. I'm breathing a little bit faster, then we want to then move to how we can take advantage of that. And that's where I think the managing of it moves toward, we move toward that so that we can then strategize, okay, what are my resources? Okay, how do I manage this problem or this situation? You start problem solving. And it may be that you talk to somebody. I don't want to get into the whole strategies right now because I think we're going to do it at the end, but is it good? Yes, I think it can be good. Now, can it be bad? Again, there's the positive, there's the negative. If we don't do anything about it and we don't address the stressful, or the causes of stress by identifying them, and then want to move forward, then I think it can be a difficult thing. It can be a negative where it becomes where, we get to the place where we don't deal with it, don't problem solve, don't seek help, don't strategize or use those resources that might be available to us or seek them, then it can become a deterrent or a detriment, I should say, or negative to our well-being, right? Both emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Right. Well, Namara, so what I'm thinking about you and all the various things you talked about, I saw good in the situation. Okay. It was challenging, but I saw good in the situation. And I saw that the situations that you're experiencing, especially when you talked about, maybe the technology challenges, or when you talked about, the resources, to me, it was like, oh, if she knew where the resources were, or if she had some additional technology, or if there was other places to go, or, that there was another form of exercise she could do to release the tension that didn't include the gym, it might be helpful. So let's look at this. I'm thinking that the way that we view things also has an impact on how we cope with our stress. So I'm going to take this is about 15 minutes, and I hope you would be able to listen to this presentation, but let me go and put it here. And this is just a framework based on research, okay? As a doctor, lived a very stressful life, and she too wanted to, she had to redefine what stress means, okay, and how to address stress. So I want to play this for you all. Hear it?
I have a confession to make. But first, I want you to make a little confession to me. In the past year, I want you to just raise your hand if you've experienced relatively little stress. Anyone? Mm-hmm. How about a moderate amount of stress? Who's experienced a lot of stress? Yeah, me too. But that is not my confession. My confession is this: I am a health psychologist, and my mission is to help people be happier and healthier. But I fear that something I've been teaching for the last 10 years is doing more harm than good, and it has to do with stress. For years, I've been telling people stress makes you sick. It increases the risk of everything from the common cold to cardiovascular disease. Basically, I've turned stress into the enemy. But I've changed my mind about stress. And today, I want to change yours. Let me start with the study that made me rethink my whole approach to stress. This study tracked 30,000 adults in the United States for 8 years. And they started by asking people, how much stress have you experienced in the last year? They also asked, do you believe that stress is harmful for your health? And then they used public death records to find out who died. Okay, some bad news first. People who experienced a lot of stress in the previous year had a 43% increased risk of dying. But that was only true for the people who also believed that stress is harmful for your health. People who experienced a lot of stress but did not view stress as harmful were no more likely to die. In fact, they had the lowest risk of dying of anyone in the study, including people who had relatively little stress. Now, the researchers estimated that over the 8 years they were tracking deaths, 182,000 Americans died prematurely, not from stress, but from the belief that stress is bad for you. That is over 20,000 deaths a year. Now, if that estimate is correct, that would make believing stress is bad for you the 15th largest cause of death in the United States last year, killing more people than skin cancer, HIV, AIDS, and homicide. You can see why this study freaked me out. Here I've been spending so much energy telling people stress is bad for your health. So this study got me wondering, can changing how you think about stress make you healthier? And here the science says yes. When you change your mind about stress, you can change your body's response to stress. Now, to explain how this works, I want you all to pretend that you are participants in a study designed to stress you out. It's called the social stress test. You come into the laboratory and you're told you have to give a 5-minute impromptu speech on your personal weaknesses to a panel of expert evaluators sitting right in front of you. And to make sure you feel the pressure, there are bright lights and a camera in your face, kind of like this. And the evaluators have been trained to give you discouraging nonverbal feedback, like this. Now that you're sufficiently demoralized, time for part 2, a math test. And unbeknownst to you, the experimenter has been trained to harass you during it. Now, we're gonna all do this together. It's gonna be fun, for me. Okay. I want you all to count backwards from 996 in increments of 7. You're gonna do this out loud as fast as you can, starting with 996. Go. Go faster. Faster, please. You're going too slow. Stop, 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 stop. That guy made a mistake. We're gonna have to start all over again. You're not very good at this, are you? Okay, so you get the idea. Now, if you were actually in this study, you'd probably be a little stressed out. Your heart might be pounding, you might be breathing faster, maybe breaking out into a sweat. And normally we interpret these physical changes as anxiety or signs that we aren't coping very well with the pressure. But what if you viewed them instead as signs that your body was energized, was preparing you to meet this challenge? Now, that is exactly what participants were told in a study conducted at Harvard University. Before they went through the social stress test, they were taught to rethink their stress response as helpful. That pounding heart is preparing you for action. If you're breathing faster, it's no problem. It's getting more oxygen to your brain. And participants who learned to view the stress response as helpful for their performance, well, they were less stressed out, less anxious, more confident. But the most fascinating finding to me was how their physical stress response changed. Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage. Over a lifetime of stressful experiences, this one biological change could be the difference between a stress-induced heart attack at age 50 and living well into your 90s. And this is really what the new science of stress reveals, that how you think about stress matters. So my goal as a health psychologist has changed. I no longer want to get rid of your stress. I want to make you better at stress. And we just did a little intervention. If you raised your hand and said you'd had a lot of stress in the last year, we could have saved your life. Because hopefully the next time your heart is pounding from stress, you're going to remember this talk and you're going to think to yourself, this is my body helping me rise to this challenge. And when you view stress in that way, your body believes you and your stress response becomes healthier. Now, I said I have over a decade of demonizing stress to redeem myself from. So we are going to do one more intervention. I want to tell you about one of the most underappreciated aspects of the stress response. And the idea is this: stress makes you social. To understand this side of stress, we need to talk about a hormone, oxytocin. And I know oxytocin has already gotten as much hype as a hormone can get. It even has its own cute nickname, the cuddle hormone, because it's released when you hug someone. But this is a very small part of what oxytocin is involved in. Oxytocin is a neurohormone. It fine-tunes your brain's social instincts. It primes you to do things that strengthen close relationships. Oxytocin makes you crave physical contact with your friends and family. It enhances your empathy. It even makes you more willing to help and support the people you care about. Some people have even suggested we should snort oxytocin to become more compassionate and caring. But here's what most people don't understand about oxytocin. It's a stress hormone. Your pituitary gland pumps this stuff out as part of the stress response. It's as much a part of your stress response as the adrenaline that makes your heart pound. And when oxytocin is released in the stress response, it is motivating you to seek support. Your biological stress response is nudging you to tell someone how you feel instead of bottling it up. Your stress response wants to make sure you notice when someone else in your life is struggling so that you can support each other. When life is difficult, your stress response wants you to be surrounded by people who care about you. Okay, so how is knowing this side of stress going to make you healthier? Well, oxytocin doesn't only act on your brain, it also acts on your body. And one of its main roles in your body is to protect your cardiovascular system from the effects of stress. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. It also helps your blood vessels stay relaxed during stress. But my favorite effect on the body is actually on the heart. Your heart has receptors for this hormone. And oxytocin helps heart cells regenerate and heal from any stress-induced damage. This stress hormone strengthens your heart. And the cool thing is that all of these physical benefits of oxytocin are enhanced by social contact and social support. So when you reach out to others under stress, either to seek support or to help someone else, you release more of this hormone, your stress response becomes healthier, and you actually recover faster from stress. I find this amazing that your stress response has a built-in mechanism for stress resilience. And that mechanism is human connection. I want to finish by telling you about one more study. And listen up, because this study could also save a life. This study tracked about 1,000 adults in the United States, and they ranged in age from 34 to 93. And they started the study by asking, how much stress have you experienced in the last year? They also asked, how much time have you spent helping out friends, neighbors, people in your community? And then they used public records for the next 5 years to find out who died. Okay, so the bad news first. For every major stressful life experience, like financial difficulties or family crisis, that increased the risk of dying by 30%. But, and I hope you are expecting a but by now, but that wasn't true for everyone. People who spent time caring for others showed absolutely no stress-related increase in dying, 0. Caring created resilience. And so we see once again that the harmful effects of stress on your health are not inevitable. How you think and how you act can transform your experience of stress. When you choose to view your stress response as helpful, you create the biology of courage. And when you choose to connect with others under stress, you can create resilience. Now, I wouldn't necessarily ask for more stressful experiences in my life, but this science has given me a whole new appreciation for stress. Stress gives us access to our hearts. The compassionate heart that finds joy and meaning in connecting with others. And yes, your pounding physical heart working so hard to give you strength and energy. And when you choose to view stress in this way, you're not just getting better at stress, you're actually making a pretty profound statement. You're saying that you can trust yourself to handle life's challenges. And you're remembering that you don't have to face them alone. Thank you.
Right, I'm gonna go back to the presentation, and while you're thinking about that, tell me a little bit about your thoughts about connection, resources, giving back as a means for stress reduction. So for those people that just came in, welcome. I do want to just kind of recap where the direction we're going, why people are thinking about the whole concept of how we look at stress and how if we can really see as stress as a help, as a way of getting connected, as a way of giving us courage. Do you agree with that? Okay. You feel that having a connection with your community, having a connection with friends, giving back, is that a method, good method for reducing stress? So when we got started with this presentation, we really wanted to define stress, and all of us define stress in different ways. Second part we want to look at is exactly what type of stress we were experiencing, and all of us had different definitions of how we experience stress. Then we wanted to look at where, in terms of in our anatomy, where do we feel the stress? Where do we experience the stress? How does it impact us? Do we get headaches? Do we have circulatory problems? What do we have? What's going on? Then we wanted to look at, okay, with the stress that we know that we have, and we can actually define where we're experiencing the stress, we want to start looking at ways to resolve stress. So the first way we're looking at resolving stress is to really think about, is it possible for us to change how we view the stressful situation, and can that help? Okay. All right. So just to recap the question again, can changing the way we think about things make us feel healthier? Okay. Can stress help us feel a sense of courage? Can getting connected help us relieve stress? Okay. Can volunteering and doing things for other people help us get away from, the negativity that we might be thinking regarding the stress, and kind of be more proactive in our approach? All right. So I'm going to just kind of go around and see what your thoughts are. Okay. Savannah, you have any ideas?
For one, I did get to watch this TED Talk before,
Okay.
and I had to write a paper on it.
Okay.
And it had to do with the whole, stress and how to deal with it, and if it's good for you. So the main thing that I brought up was it's a lot harder now because, we were in COVID and we're still in COVID, and that is a big stressor, and we don't have the ability to, have that I guess in person, holding, hugging, touching. It's more of over the phone, over Zoom. So that's kind of hard to get some of those oxytocin going, and so you got to find different ways. And through different clubs here at Pima, one of the best examples would be through the Pima's Cares Club. They had started writing little notes and love notes to elders who are isolated in the nursing homes. So that made us feel like we were actually contributing to somebody else's happiness, so that
Right.
kind of helped us like cope with being overstressed, and then having that hour just discussing, or showing our art during that, during our meetings and whatnot, also helped that. I could feel like a sense of de-stressing, and that has helped me because, like Namrata brought up, that there are no gyms that are open, and if they are open, you still have some of those people that don't follow, putting a mask on or cleaning up after yourself, and also just being really cautious of, you don't know if anybody that is coming in has the COVID and you can potentially get it, So yeah, so I think the best thing that goes with, trying to change how you think of stress makes a huge impact on you, because, whatever you tell your mind, it tells the rest of your body. And if you could de-stress yourself that way, it can be really helpful. And then, like she said in the TED Talk, is that stress does make you more social. And I feel like that's how I felt with what Narada brought up with not being able to find tutors that are available during certain hours, or finding the right person to, explain this problem or whatnot, that you're not understanding, and the way that they're explaining it, you're still not understanding, which creates more stress on top of that.
Yes, perfect example, and perfect like testimony to that, even that experience where you were giving the, into the nursing home and giving the love to the nursing facility, and how it made you feel in that respect. And that whole reflection on that connection did matter and did make a difference. And then there's the recognition that, right now during this period of time, it gets to be challenging. So even though the benefits of it, you at least sought to find different ways to still get that connection with other people that you're yearning for as a result of all these, the negativity from COVID. So it's, but again, I do hear your resilience in your statement, Savannah. Thank you. All right. Uvaldo.
If I can add just one thought on that, piggyback on both what you're both saying, is, I've always heard it often in past years through different meetings, conferences, etc., that when you are so introspective about you and your problems and your concerns and weighed down with that, there's some stress involved there, obviously. But when you then begin to reach out or to do maybe outreach, if you will, and with more of a compassionate and caring heart for somebody who's maybe in a worse situation than you, that seems to change your perspective on things. And it could be in part that oxytocin is kind of permeating now through your system, but there's that result, which is a positive and empowering thing. So I thank you for sharing that, Savannah.
Did Namara want to say something as well?
No, I think I brought up a lot. I mean, I could relate to the first part that in this TED Talk that she mentioned, like, being a doctor is stressful, but like sometimes it's not the work, it's what happens at work that's stressful. I know that's how I decided. I was a pre-med student in 2008. I'm doing a different degree now, but like I finished a healthcare management degree, and I was actually doing pediatrician as a medical program, and I worked for the Children's Hospital for 3 years.
Mhm.
And I got selected out of 100 people. 3 get selected to work for the hematology and oncology department.
Mhm.
And I was one of the lucky 3 who got to work with these kids, newborns to 21-year-olds. And, you know, just sometimes like the things I worry about and stress about, like if I see some of these kids, like I just like, they have 1,000 times much worse problems than me right now. Yet I could see a patient who's 8 years old coming out of a bone marrow transplant and playing a Wii game for 3 hours straight without being tired, you know, with his little brother who actually donated the bone marrow to him. Like it's just seeing these things is just like it, like they say, it's like, you know, it could help, you know, somewhat calm you down as a person, like, you know, make you rethink things or rethink some of the problems you have. They're I guess they're like ant sizes compared to
Right.
their elephant sized problems. But then what honestly changed my mind was I went on vacation to India one summer, and I lost 2 of my patients that I spent 2 years with every Friday for 2 years of my life. And you know, you kind of create a bond with these kids because you see them so often, and they're like permanent residents at these children's hospitals. And then they're like 9 months out of the year they're there, and the rest of the 3 or 4 months they're at the Ronald McDonald House. So I get to work with them in both places. And you know, it's, and then you all of a sudden, you know, like they died. You know, you think they're doing so well, and then they die. It's that stress that just, it's, you know, it's a different type of stress, but like it makes, I know I found out that was not something I wanted to do, because that's something I knew would like affect me, because I come home with it and it's not a good thing. So relating to her in the beginning was like, it was kind of like relatable. But then coming back to present times and like the whole COVID situation and stuff like that, it's, you know, and what you mentioned earlier, stress can be a good thing, because it could also like it could also trigger your instincts. Like if you're in like a dangerous situation, and like it could be stressful at that point, but then your brain like goes into like a rat mode where you understand, you know, like, hey, I need to do this, like it could be a good thing, but it could also be so I think stress can be both ways. It could be good and bad. It just depends on how we take it and how we deal with it, I feel.
So so you have mentioned a lot of, both of you mentioned some really wonderful things. Proactive steps by giving, you kind of recognizing that people do have more challenges, and you're putting different challenges that you have in different various perspectives so that you can decode with your stress in a different way. And that's really helpful as well. We're running to de-escalate stress, and one of the premises that we have here is that by the way we look at stress, we can control our stress by how we're looking at stress. So the next thing I want to look at is so when you talked about the different types of stresses that you had, I'm just wondering, like when you talked about maybe dealing with technology at the same time with many family members in the home, or dealing with test stress that somebody else mentioned. How do you take action? How do you know of all the different things that you're going through and the many stresses that you have? How do you know what to prioritize first? Like, how do you, like in your case, you were like, I need to get connected with somebody. How do you get that information that you need so that you can at least reduce the stress in that particular area? So thinking about all the areas that you're experiencing stress, what kind of action could you take so that you can get the answers that you need to reduce some of the stress that you may be experiencing. Okay, so what would you do first in terms of, let's use your example, Namara, about getting help from the college when you need it. Okay, what kind of steps could you take in order to get some relief in that area? So we might be working virtually for a little while, and I certainly don't want you as a student just to sit around and feel stressed about not getting this help that you need. So tell me, in your mind, some of the steps you can take first, okay? When it comes to your home, like what are some of the things you can do in order to get that privacy that you need to do some with technology? So what would you tend to want to do first, next, later, and not do at all in terms of the many things that you have? Because one of the things that we did say in the beginning is that something about us not being in control of things makes us feel this sense of stress. So what of all the things that you're going through, what are some of those areas that you might be able to gain some control over? So that is just one less thing you're feeling stressed about, okay? And if you're feeling that sense that you agreed that by connecting with somebody and feeling empowered in your head, you know, to do something, you're doing something for yourself, you think better, you know what to do. If you're really believing that, what are some of the actions that you can take to help you relieve some of that stress? I'll give you some time.
So when it comes to technology, or like the example you're putting is when it comes to my studies, if I'm stuck, the one thing I like to do is just, for me, I just take a breather and grab a glass of hot tea and I sit there. So it relaxes me for a second, and then I go back, I look at the problem, I'll email the professor. Like the next thing I do is just email. And this is a span of like 5 minutes. So I'll email the professor, I'll wait on it. And if I don't get a reply in like an hour, I'll probably just find a tutor, or I'll find a student or someone to help me to figure it out. For me, the one thing I've learned not to do is panic, like, because when I do, it just creates more problems for me. So if I panic, and it'll not only stress me out, but I'll get headaches, and it's not good for me. So I've learned to, like, you know, go in the room and just sit, or like go for a walk, or anything like other than just like freaking out. I think that's what I tend to do.
So one of the techniques that we definitely do is it's time management planning. Okay, so with the many things that you're trying to do, you have to begin to really think about prioritizing, like what exactly is it that you want to get done first? Okay, what is the thing that's truly bothering you, that's really, causing your body to react in different kind of ways? What are some of the actions you can take to resolve it? Okay, so it's really in this particular scenario of actions to do first, actions to do next, actions to do later, actions to don't do, is really taking an inventory of all the things that are really stressing you out and really putting that in an order. All right, so if you were going to list actions first, you would be talking about those things that are really 911 priority. Might be that test that you're thinking about taking. It might be, I need access to a material. I need access to my program advisor. Or what is it that you're needing? So this is actions to do first. So whatever this is if I do this right now, it's really going to take a major load off of me, because I've found a way to prioritize. It's really highly important. It's time sensitive. It's something I need to do now. So that one recommendation is really to get you to take a look at all the things that you're feeling pressured about and really put them in an order that you feel is the most urgent, not, somewhat urgent, not as urgent, low, and then something low urgency, okay? So high urgency, low urgency areas. So it's really important to really think about that so you can prioritize. And then as you think about what actions you need to take first, next, and last, it really gives you an opportunity also to find out what you need to get in order to get that accomplished, all right? So one of our methods is that we're thinking about is priority matrix as a way of organizing what you're needing to do in the order it needs to be addressed. So that's one technique. Uvaldo, you have any other added thoughts to that?
Yes. Yeah, I was hoping you'd ask or I'd interject here. One thing I really want to highlight, and Namrata, you said it so eloquently and beautifully, is that when you are dealing with let's say that stressful situation, you need help now. You're starting to sense that anxiety or that helplessness, right? In that moment, what I heard basically was when you said, I just stop and I get that 5 minute or a few minutes of, just reflect moment and time. And so what I heard you when you say, I get that tea. So what you're doing is you're stepping back, you're chilling, if you will, and first get a hold of your thoughts, right? Or your I call it the psycho-emotional, and then there's a psychophysiological response to all that, right? And I have found through my own experience, as well as counseling, working with other students, and in just people in general that I've counseled, that when we just stop for a moment and reflect on what's happening, and then be reminded, okay, to have those, the courage to say, I'm going to get through this. You don't exactly know how yet, but then as DeLisa, you talked about, okay, what are the strategies? And what I wanted to just highlight is the initial part of what you, how you addressed it. And I think that's so important, because if we can't get through that first kind of a step, we'll not get to the other strategies. So anyway, those are just a few thoughts there. So really wonderful how you expanded on that, and I wholeheartedly agree with you.
All right, got to freeze in my slide. Okay.
As you're working that through, DeLisa, I was just reminded, to have the courage. That's what the doctor there had alluded to. Have the courage to then say, I'm gonna take this on. I'm gonna work with this, and that I can move ahead. Just need to now. As I'll let you continue with the idea of relaxing and refreshing, reflecting. We could continue on with those adjectives and then recharge as we move forward. But go ahead, Lisa.
So I'm thinking about this. Okay, so we got a chance to really kind of pinpoint exactly where we're experiencing our stressors. And then we're really kind of looking at this proposal of let's prioritize what we're going through and kind of address it in the order of importance. All right. And so by understanding where we're feeling the stress, and we decide, let's say, for instance, you want to be able to get services in a more expedient fashion. Some of the things I'm thinking about, that's a priority to you. The finals are coming up. You want to get this information now. You mentioned that you talk to your instructor, you send your instructor an email, you talk to friends. So those are all good resources that you can use, but maybe you might want to know what's in the college. So you might want to meet with your program advisor to find out exactly, where are those resources? How can I connect with you quickly? When is your connection time? So I don't want to have to wait. What can I do to make, ask this question a little early so that I can get, feedback from, my advisor as needed. So prioritizing is super important. Okay, knowing where your stresses are is super important. Really thinking about how you're experiencing the stress, and really think in terms of what can I do to de-escalate. Some of them are to help other people. Some of it is to really see that you're creating the courage, you're taking the steps, you're rising to the challenge to really try to address some of the stress that you're experiencing. All right. So it's time prioritizing what you're going through, and mindset, how you look at it, and really understanding your body. Okay, my body's experiencing something, I need to address it. This is how I'm going to do it, and develop a plan, and really identify who you need to connect with in order to get the answers to help you reduce some of those stressors. And it could be in class, it could be a faculty, it could be an advisor, it could be your counselor, it could be a family member, it could be any of those people. One of the things I did say in the TED Talk is it's really important to connect with other people. So sometimes we get in our bubble and like, oh, I'm just so agitated. Getting connected with other people, letting them know how they can help you is also a way to reduce your stress. Now, another area of stress reduction is to relax. Now, some people say, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I don't have any time to relax. I want you to take a moment to really think about it for yourself. What do you do to relax? What exactly do you do to relax? What are you doing to relax? Now, a lot of people that are, a couple of people on this call are like honest people, honest students, and they're always busy with some kind of event that they're taking care of. And they always go, 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 go. And they don't sometimes think or reflect on their body. They don't really take time to talk. They don't really take time to express what's going on with them. How do you relax? What do you do to relax? Just give me 3. That's it for now. I want you to reflect a little later too, but I really want you to get started about what do you do to relax?
Did you want us to tell you?
I'm going to give you time. I always give people time to think about it for a hot minute because I don't want them to go, okay. I just want them to like, okay, yeah, that really helps me with my stress. Yeah.
We don't want to cause any more stress right now.
Exactly. And actually, while you're thinking about it, what do you do to refresh? For me personally, I like to go out like exactly. I showed you the pictures in the beginning. I love to hike. I love to visit my son in Washington State. Yeah, refresh. I love to do that. I love to get up early in the morning and hear those birds chirping. I love the quiet of the morning.
Yeah, moving away entirely from that situation and open up, so to speak, our mind to and allow a new environment, a new atmosphere that refreshes us, something that we enjoy doing, right? Or that we appreciate or that we're in awe of, if you will. Sometimes I just look up to the sky and on a clear night, right? And I look at the stars and I'm just like, this is majestic. Wow, and just reflect on that for a few moments. But it could be taking a trip out to California that I look forward to, and knowing that, hey, we're going to walk along the beach. We're going to enjoy our time there. It is so refreshing. Anyway, that's just a couple examples.
Right. That's an example. And recharge. Yeah. What are you doing to recharge? I'm like so into yoga. And I just went home for lunch break and I just like, oh my gosh, just to do the stretch, just to move in the direction that my body needs it. Cause you sit by a computer and it's like, it recharges me I couldn't hear the noise. I wanted to see, the calming sounds of yoga that it really helped me out. So what do you do to relax, refresh, and recharge?
Namrata, I know you had mentioned earlier the gym. I'll just say for me, and then you can add or subtract or whatever. But when I go to the gym or I get on my cycle, my bicycle, if you will, because I am a cyclist as well, I tell you, I'm energized, I'm recharged because of the oxygenation that goes to my brain and clears everything. You get that kind of, they call it the runner's high, but I call it the cyclist high or the working out with weights high. It just, I go in there, sometimes dragging. And by the time I'm halfway through or even 15 minutes into my workout, I'm already being recharged. And when I leave, it's like, it's amazing how I go in where I'm barely dragging my body in across, into the gym or wherever my own home gym. And when I'm coming out, I'm pumped up, if, literally.
Yes. Yeah. And they're like, even when I go, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about like, even when I go to Washington, I love ferries because we're in the desert. So I get on the ferry and it's like on a cool day. I don't want to visit. I only want to visit Washington on a cool day. And then I have my hot tea or my hot chocolate, and I'm kind of the overcast. For some that recharges me. For some people, it's like a downer, but for me, it's like a recharge. It's a calm that I seek to, have when, in certain moments. So, yeah. So I want to hear you guys. So what do you think?
Yeah, the gym, after my ankle surgery, it's been hard to I've been told not to do on the treadmill and stuff like that. So like going around it. Like it used to be where running is like the best thing. Like it's like that runner's high you mentioned. It's phenomenal. Like I could go like only like 10 minutes on there and I'll love it. It's the one I used to use, and not really a treadmill, but it's the one the fast runners use. It's like a speed runner. It's a smaller, it's like half the size of a treadmill, and it's literally a fast runner. It just it warps. It and it's like the best thing. Haven't been able to do that, so I had to find like other means. But weightlifting, like you said, is like phenomenal. It's like I could go in dragging, like I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, and then 10 minutes into it, it's just like I'm all pumped with like the music in my ear, and it's just that's the end of it. Like I have a whole playlist just created just for the gym, and I put it on, and the next thing you know, I've been in there for 2 hours, and like time just like runs out. Like it's just like what's going on here, but you know, it's relaxing. Some of the other ones, my relaxation is like just turning the computer off and actually playing like board games or card games with my family. It's you know, so people say, well, board games are stressful. I'm competitive, so you know, so we'll play like it's called Phase 10. I don't know if you actually heard it. It's a card game.
No.
Uno created a game called Phase 10. It's like Rummy. It's a version of Rummy.
I played Rummy before.
But it's different phases you have to create. So they have 10 phases. You have to pass each phase. Whoever finishes the 10th phase first wins. Was the least. And it's just like, and we found like a bunch of other versions of it. Like if you Wikipedia it, they have like 10 different rounds, like different games of the same thing. And it's so much fun. And yeah, they are like my father-in-law.
They look at you.
Just all of us, we're competitive. We love to play. And I mean, chess or my husband's a great chess player. So like playing with him, it just like annoys me because like I can't win. It's like, but it's a stress relief. It's relaxing. It's fun. So that's what we usually do. For me, for like to like actually relax is just turning off everything and just doing that. It's fun. Or watching something like a show or a movie.
Well, I was just looking at your energy when you talked about your reflex, refresh, and recharge. I mean, it's just the energy right there. That took a lot of stress off of you right there, just to talk about the things that really matter to you, that really get you excited, spending time with the family, doing those competitive games, and, just exercising and getting on that speed run and getting some of that energy out is a beautiful thing. And I really love that you said this. I wanted to see if there was anybody else have any ideas, or can you share with us the way that you relax, refresh, and recharge?
Michael does. Michael likes to joke.
Everyone knows Michael.
I also, well, DeLisa knows about my grandson, so that brought a lot of oxytocin in. But animals, pets, and flowers, garden stuff in the yard, doing yard work. Things that I can see I actually have accomplished, like it looks like something's been cleaned up. That makes me feel good too.
Real tangible results.
Yes. I just, I love these ideas. So what I'm seeing, and just to close out a little bit, is that first of all, I love that we were able to connect and really talk about some of, stress, and how we feel and how we experience stress and how stress plays out in our body. We were able to look at the various ways that we experience stress. And we really were able to look at how our mind processes stress and how we can do things within our system by really kind of prioritizing what we need to work on right away, later, so on, so that we can kind of find the resources that we need to help us address the problem. One of the things that was said in the TED Talk was that connecting with other people is a valuable way to reduce stress. Finding ways to help people, to let people know how they can help you. Relaxing, refreshing, recharging. You talked about the beautiful ways that you get that you relax, you refresh, you recharge. So yes, we wanted, in our effort, we just wanted to be able to really just talk about what we feel in terms of stress, our stress. And just to be able to talk about it, and have somebody listen to it is a beautiful thing as well. So that is my closing statement. Is there anybody that wants to say anything before we go?
Just along that lines, DeLisa, is we're social beings. And as social beings, we need to socialize. And then obviously during this health crisis, we were challenged with that. And at least I found within my family and my community, if you will, we found ways, around that. You have to go with your level of, your level of comfort as well in considering all those things. But when it comes to, our students, I think being connected, again, those words that we used when we talked about, being connected, well, find out what your connections are. We have something called Pima Connect, right? Where you have your faculty advisors, your program advisors, you have us, academic success counselors. Then there are a number of other resources, even in D2L. If you look down below there, you have student services, you have tech support, you have tutoring, etc. And sometimes, there's so much to navigate, but that's where we come in, and we can be a support, a help, a resource to our students. And then in turn, that ultimately we want to empower them. Again, that whole title of Stress Empowerment Hour, I hope that this time has been useful in that way to help you feel somewhat empowered to, handle your stress in a more effective way. So those are my thoughts. And again, thank you for joining us in this hour. It's been quite relaxing and refreshing. Thank you.
You guys have a good day.
All right. Any